The history of humanity is marked by migrations, conquests and the spread of ideas that have shaped the world we live in today. But there's one group of people who, despite having a truly profound impact on so many aspects of our life, from language to genetics to technology, are so under-discussed. They are the Indo-Europeans. So in this video I want to change that and look at who the Indo-Europeans actually were, how they changed the world, and the lasting impacts they've had on us today. This is how the Indo-Europeans changed the world. First up is the most obvious question: who exactly were the Indo-Europeans? Well, for those that are not familiar with them, the Indo-Europeans are one of the most significant cultural and linguistic groups in human history, and their migration, language and technological innovations had profound effects on the development of the world. The Indo-Europeans did not form, however, a single cohesive civilization, but rather a linguistic and cultural family that spread across vast regions over thousands of years. The ancient Indo-Europeans are thought to have spoken the Proto-Indo-European language, which is a reconstructed common ancestral language of the family of languages known as the Indo-European languages, with around half the world speaking a language that belongs to the Indo-European language family. Their homeland is thought to have been in the area around the Pontic-Caspian steppe, which is just north of the Black Sea, around modern-day Ukraine and parts of Russia today. Now, a people that were instrumental in the spread of the Indo-European influence across the world was the Yamnaya culture, which existed from around 3300 to 2600 BC. Now, we know that there was notable migrations of the Yamnaya from the steppe across Eurasia around this time, but how did they migrate? Well, this speaks to one way the Indo-Europeans changed the world, by embracing and helping to spread revolutionary technologies for their time. Now, these technologies weren't iPads, or AI machine learning quantum supercomputer robots, but technologies as profound for their time. One was the wheel. Now, the Yamnaya didn't invent the wheel, as it was potentially invented a little earlier in Mesopotamia, although this is debated. The Yamnaya, however, made full use of this relatively new invention by attaching these wheels to wagons, which were then pulled by animals like oxen. Now, the Yamnaya potentially got the idea of attaching wheels to wagons from a culture just south of them called the Mycop culture. These new wheeled wagons allowed the Yamnaya to take larger amounts of water and supplies with them and explore further beyond the landscape they occupied, which was the steppe, a vast area of rolling grasslands that connects Europe and Asia, with the steppe often described as a landscape of movement. And this speaks to another key feature that the Yamnaya made use of, a new technology, if you will: domesticated horses. Now, the Yamnaya didn't domesticate horses, they weren't the first culture to do so, but they lived relatively soon after the first culture did, which was probably the Botai culture, a people who lived in part of the steppe further east in what is now modern-day northern Kazakhstan, between around 3500 and 3000 BC. The Yamnaya culture, however, was an early adopter of this new technology, and they were among the first to harness horses for riding and pulling chariots, revolutionising transportation and warfare. Now we are beginning to see how the Yamnaya had such an impact on so many parts of the world, as chariots, wheeled wagons and horses all combined in a region of the world that was a landscape of movement. The Yamnaya and associated peoples therefore must have played an instrumental role in spreading these technologies to various parts of Eurasia and exemplifying their power. Yet this was far from the only way they changed the world. If you're enjoying this video, please consider subscribing. Now, before we look at the genetic impact of the Indo-Europeans on various parts of the world, and also their impact on parts of our diets, let's first look at another major way that the Indo-Europeans changed the world: language. Today, billions of people around the world speak languages that are part of the Indo-European language family, from the Americas to India. Indo-European languages include English, Spanish, Portuguese, Sanskrit, Russian, Bengali, Punjabi, French, German and Persian, amongst many others. But language wasn't just about communication, it was also a vehicle for culture, science, literature and religion. As Indo-European languages spread across different regions, they carried with them ideas, myths and innovations that would become the foundation of major civilizations. Take Sanskrit, for example. The ancient Vedic texts written in Sanskrit formed the basis for Hinduism, one of the world's oldest religions. Now, as mentioned earlier, Proto-Indo-European is the reconstructed ancestral language of all the Indo-European languages. What is interesting about Proto-Indo-European though, is that there's no actual direct record of it ever existing. There is no written records or anything like that. It is a reconstructed language by modern linguists, after people for hundreds of years noted similarities in languages that shouldn't really have anything to do with each other. What has Sanskrit got to do with Spanish, for instance? Well, we now think that the Proto-Indo-European language is the base language for both time languages and all other languages in the Indo-European language family. And this Proto-Indo-European language was spread by early Indo-Europeans who migrated from the steppe using horses, wheeled wagons and chariots. Some of the early people who noticed these similarities are often interesting stories in and of themselves. For example, it was actually a Welsh philologist and judge called Sir William Jones who most famously speculated on a lost ancient language after he learned Sanskrit when he moved to Calcutta in British India. Before moving to India, Jones could already speak numerous languages, including Greek and Latin, as well as English and Welsh, of course. After learning Sanskrit though, he famously observed in 1786 that it had such an affinity to languages like Greek and Latin, both in the roots of verbs and the forms of grammar, than could possibly have been produced by accident. So strong indeed that no philologer could examine all three without believing them to have sprung from some common source, which perhaps no longer exists. This table shows a breakdown of what we think the Proto-Indo-European words would be for common kinship words. If we look at the Proto-Indo-European word for mother on the left, then look at how similar modern words for mother are in various different languages across the world, you can see the striking similarities in seemingly distant languages. From Gothic to Latin, ancient Greek to Sanskrit, Slavic to Celtic, the similarities are remarkable. And mother is just one example of so many other words that have such affinities across cultures. So it's clear that the Indo-Europeans had a profound impact on the languages of the world, and that impact is still with us today. But what about genetics and DNA? What impact did the Indo-Europeans have on the genetics of the world today? Well, anyone that's seen any previous videos of mine in the Genetic History series will know how common steppe ancestry is in various different parts of the world, particularly obviously in parts of Europe and places with people of European descent, as well as places like India. This is because the introduction of steppe ancestry during the Bronze Age was the third major component in the ancient genetic history of Europe, following hunter-gatherer and early European farmer ancestry. But how violent was this introduction of steppe ancestry? Well, there are different theories out there, and I would be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments below as well, but it was perhaps quite violent. Results from some studies have suggested that the migration of the Yamnaya was a male-biased migration, with a 2017 study published in PNAS, for example, finding evidence that migrations from the Pontic steppe had a dramatic male bias, with approximately 5 to 14 migrating males for every migrating female. So one could potentially make the argument that the migration of the Yamnaya people was more of an invasion of mainly men on horseback and using chariots, devastating the previous populations of Europe who had perhaps not even seen a man on horseback before. We also know that the Yamnaya were physically strong and well built, fueled by a high protein diet. And on that note, the Yamnaya consumed dairy, and this potentially contributed to their expansion from the steppe. They are thought to have played a significant role in spreading the genetic trait for lactase persistence, which is the ability to digest lactose, the sugar found in milk, into adulthood. Now, I should note that other people do argue that the Yamnaya had such an impact on various different parts of the world, mainly due to technological advantage rather than pure violence. But please let me know your thoughts below. What is more clear is just how profound the genetic changes were, including on the Y-DNA haplogroups of Europe. Today, the most common Y-DNA haplogroup in many parts of Western and Central Europe is R1b, and this haplogroup is associated with the migrations of the Indo-Europeans from the steppe. R1b is also found at low levels across Europe in general, and in places that Europeans have moved into, such as the United States. The Y-DNA haplogroup R1a as well has also been linked to these Indo-European migrations through the spread of the corded ware culture, who themselves are partially related to the Yamnaya. So the Indo-Europeans changed the genetics, the language and technologies of various parts of the world, and many of these changes were lasting changes. They also had an impact on various other aspects of the world, from inspiring gods in various ancient cultures to introducing new farming and metalworking techniques, but this is a story for another time. Now, a region of the world that the Indo-Europeans had a major impact on is the land we call England today. But what is the genetic history of England? To find out, please click here. Thanks for watching, and thanks to my Patreon members for voting for this video topic. If you would like to vote for what video topics I make videos on, I'll put a link to my Patreon page below. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Please subscribe and hit the bell, and let me know your thoughts below, and I'll see you next time.